Dear countrymen and women and the youth of Zambia, we come live from Accra, Ghana, to interact with the nation, particularly on two important issues that have dominated national debate in the last 2 or so days. And as government, we find ourselves duty-bound to pronounce ourselves on the issues that are of great concern to our citizens and to our country. The issues that we intend this evening to address are the following. We'd like to give an update to the nation on the fuel supply situation in the country, given the concerns that have been raised by certain sectors and quarters of our society. Secondly, we would like to pronounce government's position on the question of the appointments of former vice presidents as special envoys by the president, and also thereto emoluments that attend to their appointments. Let me therefore begin by indicating that the Government Republic of Zambia wishes to assure motorists and the general traveling public and members of society at large that the country is fuel sufficient for now. We have noted some intermittent supply of diesel at some service stations in some parts of the country. However, we wish to assure members of the public that the country has sufficient stocks of diesel. As at May 13th, which is yesterday, 2024, the country had 83,624,404 liters of diesel and 26,326,749 liters of petrol in various depots and retail sites countrywide. This is translating to 23 stock days for diesel and 17 stock days for petrol. Therefore, these quantities of fuel are enough to cover the national requirements of petrol products for the entire month, petroleum products for the entire month of May 2024. The government is monitoring the stock situation around the country through the Energy Regulation Board. And we are aware of the reported diesel stockouts at some service stations in the country. The observed pockets of diesel stockouts have been attributed to logistical challenges on the part of some oil marketing companies, OMCs, that are running such retail sites. In view of the above, the Tazama depot at Mpika will open on the 15th May 2024 to cater for the northern region. Oil marketing companies are encouraged to uplift the product from the Mpika depot. The Energy Regulation Board and the Road Transport and Safety Agency have all been directed to facilitate movement of the product beyond 18 hours. We would like to advise citizens against panic buying, as we expect the OMCs, as per their respective license conditions, to supply fuel to all their stations and hence stabilizing the flow of diesel across the country. We have further instructed the ERB to continue random surveillance inspections of depots and filling stations in the country to ensure the OMCs improve on their logistics to avoid any stockouts right across the country. As of today, as we speak, there was a meeting that was held between the government Republic of Zambia through Indeni and the oil marketing companies, and that an agreement has been reached that oil marketing companies should uplift fuel, particularly diesel, from Indeni to their various service stations right across the country, with an agreement that all those who shall uplift the commodity shall not hold it for speculative purposes. The government, Republic of Zambia, is taking into account and consideration the concerns raised by the oil marketing companies, and that the government will ensure that there should be no disruption of petroleum products supply in the country. Let me take this opportunity also to indicate that when it comes to the issue of ERB and its consultations processes with the government regarding fuel fluctuations and tariffs thereof, ZESCO electricity tariffs increase announcements, the government had concern over ZESCO electricity tariff announcements that were not in consultative terms with government and not fuel in terms of petroleum products. So, we would like to indicate that regarding the comments by the president of the oil marketing companies, Dr. Mubanga, that government should therefore reduce the fuel prices in consideration of the fact that ERB did not consult with government. Government did not make reference to that at all. The government made reference to announcement of electricity tariffs barely a day after announcement of fuel increase, prices, something the government was of great concern about, given that there was no time for the citizens to adjust with that kind of upward adjustment, and therefore announcement of a tariff increase in terms of electricity came as a shock to the citizens and indeed to the government, given that there had to have been had consideration of time for adjustment. Therefore, the government made comments about consultations in reference to the issue of electricity tariff hike and not fuel price hike. Let me transition, therefore, now to address the issue that has come through as a matter of concern by some quarters of our society, and this is a matter relating to the appointment of former vice presidents as presidential envoys. The nation will recall that a few months ago, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema, announced to the nation that he had appointed former vice presidents as his special envoys for various tasks on the behalf of the executive. And the former vice president and or prime minister that the president appointed are as follows: Brigadier General Malimba Masheke, Brigadier General Godfrey Mianda, Honorable Enoch P. Kavindele, Dr. Nevas S. Mumba, Dr. Guy Scott, Honorable Mrs. Inonge M. Winner. These 6 former Vice Presidents and or Prime Minister of the Republic of Zambia are the ones or persons that the President appointed as special envoys for the executive. Let me therefore give the legal rationale or backdrop of these appointments. Article 92(2)(f) of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia provides as follows. At 2, without limiting the other provisions of this Constitution, the President shall, at F, appoint persons as are required to perform special duties for the executive. The import of the above provision is that the President has powers to appoint a person that is required to perform special duties for the executive. Therefore, it follows that the President has powers to appoint any person, including a former Vice President, as a presidential envoy, including the former Vice President as a presidential envoy, in order for a presidential envoy to perform any such duties for the behalf of the executive. It is important to indicate that the executive authority of the Republic vests in the President, and as such, the President has powers to confer special duties for the executive on the presidential envoy. In that regard, Article 91(2) of the Constitution provides as follows. 91(2), and I quote, "The executive authority of the state vests in the President, and, subject to the Constitution, shall be exercised directly by the President or through public officers or other persons appointed by the President. With regards to the emoluments of the presidential envoy, it is important to indicate that when a person is appointed as presidential envoy, their emoluments will be a charge on the consolidated fund of the Republic. And that means that the office of the presidential envoy will be regarded as a public office, as provided for under Article 266 of the Republican Constitution, which defines public office as follows, and I quote, "Public office means an office whose emoluments and expenses are a charge on the consolidated fund or other prescribed public fund, and includes a state office, constitutional office, an office in the public service, including that of a member of a commission." Public officer is defined under Article 266 of the Constitution as follows. Public officer means a person holding or acting in a public office, but does not include a state officer, councillor or constitutional office holder, a judge and or judicial officer. Further, Article 264 provides as follows, and I quote at Article 264(1), "A public officer, chief, and member of the House of Chiefs shall be paid such emoluments as recommended by the relevant authority or commission and determined by the Emoluments Commission." The meaning of the above provisions is that the emoluments of the public officer, which in this case includes a presidential envoy, a former vice president, shall be determined by the relevant authority or commission. In this case, since a presidential envoy does not fall under a commission, the emoluments have to be decided by the relevant authority. In order to determine the office which is the relevant authority, the envisaged Article 264 reference will be made to Article 176(2)(a) and (b), which states at 2, and I quote, "The Secretary to Cabinet shall, at A, be chief advisor to the President on the management of the public service. As at B, be the head of the public service and responsible to the President for securing the general efficiency and effectiveness of the public service." As indicated earlier, a presidential envoy will not fall under a commission, and as such, their emoluments will be recommended by the Secretary to Cabinet to the Emoluments Commission, and that is because the office of the Secretary to Cabinet is the relevant authority named here before, as envisaged under Article 264(1) of the Constitution, as earlier indicated. The word emolument is defined under Article 266 of the Constitution as follows. Emoluments includes salaries, allowances, benefits, and rights that form an individual's remuneration for services rendered, including pension benefits or other benefits on retirement. In the premises, as the case in the present, it is therefore, and it follows thus, that pursuant to Article 92(2)(f) of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia, the President has the power to appoint a person, which includes a former Vice President, as a presidential envoy, who will perform special duties for the executive. Furthermore, the emoluments of the presidential envoy shall be recommended by the Secretary to Cabinet and determined by the Emoluments Commission. By this appointment of the former vice presidents whose names I have read out, namely Brigadier General Malimba Masheke, Brigadier General Godfrey Mianda, Honorable Enoch P. Kavindele, Dr. Nevas S. Mumba, Dr. Guy Scott, and Mrs. Inonge M. Winner. The President of the Republic of Zambia is in fulfillment of the long-plaguing issue at the National Assembly of Zambia that we believe has been a concern by many citizens at large, that whereas, for instance, retired judges of the judiciary are entitled to remunerations to the tune of 80% of a sitting judge's emoluments, a vice president who has served at such a high level is left to fend for themselves. This has been a topical issue at Parliament, including the present and current Parliament, which, when discussing matters to do with the conditions of service of members of Parliament, was a center stage debate that a vice president of the Republic who has served the country at such a higher level should not be left to wander about on their own when they have left office. No wonder that as statespersons, when they are called to duty, given the enormous reservoir of expertise and experience endowed, within themselves, having served the country at those levels, sometimes they don't look befitting to carry out the functions for which the executive or indeed the president calls them to perform. We are of the well-considered view that what the current president has done is what former presidents have done, to be able to look into the plight of former vice presidents to ensure that as a country we remain cognizant and appreciative of the role they have played at that such high level. What His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema has done now is not just in the interest of the former vice president, but in the interest of the nation, because it brings decency to the office of former vice presidents. And the current members of parliament, and sundry, do agree with this position that the former vice presidents needed this kind of intervention. I'd also like to indicate that this decision was not a decision to favor the current regime, as no former vice president has yet graduated in that state under the current New Dawn UPND administration. The 6 former vice presidents, or 5 of them plus one former prime minister, who is equated therefore to a vice president, or none belong to this New Dawn administration. The Prime Minister, Malimba Masheke, belongs to the UNIP administration. Brigadier General Mianda, Honorable Kavindele, Honorable Nevas Mumba belong to the MMD administration. Dr. Guy Scott and Honorable Mrs. Inonge Wina, former vice presidents of the Patriotic Front. These former vice presidents, when they were vice presidents of the Republic, were the leaders of government business in Parliament. And therefore, it is befitting that they be given treatment commensurate to the level of service that they offered to this country. Let me therefore take occasion to indicate to the nation the terms of reference for these presidential envoys that His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema appointed. That is to say, having served as Vice President, Prime Minister, your mandate will be to provide advice, guidance to the head of state on various national, international issues of a complex nature. In contributing towards safeguarding the national interests of the country, the envoy would therefore carry out the following responsibilities. 1. Emissarial responsibility. Communicate key pertinent written or oral messages from the head of state to his counterparts or to a foreign government. 2. Advisory role. 1. On matters across the spectrum of national policy and upon critical analysis of matters, the envoy would provide relevant advice, recommendations for consideration by the head of state. 2. Could initiate or contribute towards the drafting of such messages from the head of state. 3. Negotiate. 3.1. Serve as an official representative to non-state actors over confidential issues where the head of state would require some intervention. 2. bring to bear matters that would not necessarily need to be addressed through a formal governmental structure. 4. Representative. 4.1. In the absence of an official government for a presidential assignment, the envoy would serve as official representative of the head of state. These are the terms of reference for those who have been appointed as presidential envoys by His Excellency the President. I would like now to indicate that we have taken note that those who are commenting on this particular issue have singled out 2 former vice presidents, namely former Vice President or Vice President Dr. Nevas Mumba and Vice President Enoch Kavindele, as the ones that President Hakainde Hichilema has appointed as special envoys and have attributed certain connotations to these 2. We would like to clarify and place on record that all the 6 living former vice presidents of the Republic of Zambia have been appointed as presidential envoys, and that their duty mandate is ongoing, that at any time they can, out of their own free will and volition, be able to initiate communication with the President in an advisory role and capacity, and or be sent on special duties by the President. Therefore, their role should be construed as one which is an ongoing role, day in, day out, thus commensurate and in line with their terms of reference. The Government Republic of Zambia would therefore like to indicate that their appointment is in line with the provisions of the law, and that in trying to perfect and consolidate the decency of the office of former Vice President, further steps shall be put in place, including legislative measures, to ensure that some of the things and measures that have to be taken at governmental level to ensure that this office is protected going forward will be put in place, and the same shall be communicated to the people and the citizens of the Republic of Zambia. Thank you for your kind attention. We're done? Mm-hmm.
So the question says, good evening. Why do they want to appoint vice presidents as chief advisors when it's too late? Then again, the other one has come. It's according to the speeches that are being talked about. When are you going to reduce fuel?